and welcome to the second annual Survivors Summit hosted by me, Randy from Basic Studios. This Survivor Summit is live streaming on a lot of platforms, so if you see us, pop a comment and we'll say hi. The first person that I would like to introduce is a very special friend of my very special friend. And I specifically set up this summit to focus on the before, during, and after when it comes to dealing with mental health. Now, remember, this year we're focusing on neurodivergent mental health, not just everybody. There's a special selected few of us that we think different, we act different, and we are very, very unique. There's very different ways that we cope with the world. So this year, we would like to talk about that specifically. We're going to focus on neurodivergent well-being in this crazy changing world. So sit back and let's go.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am really excited to introduce you to coping mechanisms and emotional strategy as a part of the Survivor Summit 2025. Let's get started. Here's what we will discuss. You'll get a brief introduction to who I am, an introduction to the topic. The very core tool that we will be discussing is the circle of control. I'll be sharing a time and energy management resource that is very deeply integrated with the circle of control. We will talk a bit about navigating our emotions, letting go with peace, and creating constants. I hope you're ready. I hope you're logged in because I'm extremely excited and hyped up at 3:40 in the morning to share this information with you. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, a brief introduction to who I am. Hi, I'm Madhurima Sapati. I am a global stress management facilitator and an award-winning wellness coach who loves to support multi-passionate, ambitious dreamers manage their stress and prevent burnout. And I'm on a mission to make stress management fun, because why not? I think a lot of people assume that stress management by default is this really dark and heavy thing that's going to take too much time away from our personal and professional lives. And I get that assumption. I've held that assumption myself as someone who's been extremely stressed out for pretty much all her life, been through two major burnouts, like really bad ones at that, and have been told by a medical professional that Madhurima, the best way to manage your stress is to not get stressed out. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I was paying him, to give me this, the biggest piece of advice I've ever gotten around stress management, which is why it's really important for me to make stress management something that is tangible, that is something that you can work on. You have tools that you can start introducing into your life on a daily basis. And one of those tools is what I'm going to be introducing you to today. Now, a very brief introduction to the topic about coping mechanisms and the strategies that we have that I'll be sharing today and why it's so important. About 5 years ago, just before I got started into entered the coaching world, essentially, I was extremely burnt out. I was coming out of a burnout, and I was like finding my own place in this world. Unfortunately, this was happening right at the start of the pandemic. I had, and still have to some degree, but back then I had really bad health anxiety, and the uncertainty of it all was really leading me to kind of spiral in a very bad way. I essentially had a midlife crisis because I had quit a job that I was extremely burnt out at. I had joined another company that I had to quit because of the pandemic, and so I was essentially floating in a space of I have zero idea what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Like, I had zero purpose on how I want to move forward, where I'm supposed to take my life. The health anxiety and the uncertainty certainly did not help. And so it was during this time that some of the tools that I'll be sharing today made a really huge impact. I was also getting coached and mentored by a lot of people. But the tools that I'll be sharing today made a huge impact on how I approached my own stress, how I approached managing my own overthinking, because my overthinking I'm a storyteller through and through, and my overthinking would take me on journeys so beautiful and far fetched that I believed with a certainty that, yeah, things are going to happen to me specifically and they're going to end up going really, really bad. So I created a bunch of coping strategies to support myself, and those are some of the strategies that I'll be sharing with you today. And I'm really, really excited to be holding the space for you and sharing these strategies with you. Okay, the circle of control. Now, this concept and tool was created by Stephen Covey in his book. And what I've done is, while I absolutely loved the original tool, I kind of interpreted it a bit to align with my own overthinking and kind of finding an element of control, because at the end of the day, uncertainty or constant changes, the reason why it freaks us out so much, and I'm not going to assume like it's the truth for everyone, but for a lot of people, and for me specifically, it was the loss of control. It was not being able to understand which direction I'm going at, the steps am I that I am taking, are they steps that I'm taking on solid ground, or is it wobbly? Am I going to fall the very next step that I take? Like, is this a solid foundation? And so the loss of control is often what freaks us out during changes that are happening extremely rapidly. And so for me, the circle of control was a really powerful tool that I then kind of amalgamated into this beautiful tool that I'll be sharing with you today. And so the circle of control focuses on three core elements. We have things that we can control, things that we can kind of influence, and things that we cannot control at all. So when I am in this overthinking spiral, which still happens to this day, I'm not saying that I'm this perfect being who has figured it all out. We are constantly evolving as human beings, and so there are going to be new challenges. There are going to be spaces when we are overwhelmed, we are stressed out. And so tools like these are really important at every part of our journey, and we can shape it however we want to shape it. But the foundation that I want to share with you is, when we are in a space where we are overwhelmed, when where we are overthinking, where everything feels out of control, my invitation to you would be to first take a blank piece of paper and then just brain dump everything that is making you feel like, okay, this is what's happening right now. Just like, this is my reality at this point in time. Make a list of all the things that's happening to you at this point in time. Once the brain dump is done, what we're essentially going to do is divide it into three core elements. Things that we can control. So these are the things that we have absolute control over. We are the ones who are making the choices. We are not being influenced by other parties. We are not being influenced to make decisions that will align with others. These are things that we can control. We are like, yes, no. But I'm the one who's saying yes or no to specific things. Things that we can kind of influence are, we don't really know how things are going to change in the future, the directions that we are taking, which paths it's going to lead at, but we kind of have a vague idea of like, if I take X step, I'm going to be able to do Y in the future, right? Like, if I want to eat oats tomorrow in the morning and I want to eat overnight oats, if I soak my oats tonight, I will be able to eat oats tomorrow in the morning. What I add into the oats in the morning depends on whatever other supplies we have, like for garnishing and all of that jazz. But for me, to make the influence, things that I can influence is soaking those oats tonight. So those are things that we can influence. It can change in the future depending on different scenarios. Maybe I wake up tomorrow morning and I'm like, I don't really want to eat it. I don't really want to eat oats right now. Like, I want to try something else. Like, I want to grab a sandwich or something like that. Depends. But these are things that I can kind of influence, but I don't have complete control over. And then things that we cannot really control are, well, things that we cannot really control. We have zero control over how things are going to go. And while it seems overwhelming in and of itself to be able to make this decision, I think it also releases a lot of the pressure that we have on ourselves. Like, when we are sending interviews, we are giving interviews, so we are creating our resumes. The things that I can control is creating and adding everything that I can in the resume. The things that I can influence is potentially getting in touch with people within the company, creating a bond, networking, and all of that jazz, so that I have different angles of entry within the organization. Things that I cannot control is who the hiring manager is going to choose. Like how much, irrespective of how much ever I worry about it, that is something that's out of my control. How people are going to respond to specific situations, it's out of our control because we can't do it. At the most, we can influence it, but we can't really make decisions for other people. So those are things that we cannot control. Now, once we have categorized our things that's happening to us into these three categories: things that I can control, things that I can influence, and things that I cannot control. We are going to let go of things that we cannot control. It is not worth the time and energy that we are putting into it. And I will be sharing a bit of a strategy on what we can do to let go of things that we cannot control. But that's at a later point in the presentation. And what we're going to do is focus our time, energy, and other resources on things that we can control and things that we can influence. And this is where the time and energy management conversation comes uh, into the session essentially. And what I'm going to do is, here's the thing: our resources are limited. Our time and energy and money is limited, and any other form of resource that you want to consider, human resources, people that we can bring into our teams to support us on specific tasks, all of these things are limited. So we are going to use it cleverly. We are going to strategize and input our resources in proper spaces. And time and energy is some of the biggest resources that we have that we can control. Like it is in our control where we input our time, where we input our energy, right? So what I am going to do is I am going to spend, or I'm going to input about 80% of my time and energy on things that I can control. I will input about 20% of my time and energy on things that I can potentially influence. And the things that I cannot control, I'm not going to put any time and energy on it. Now, this seems like a very concept in and of itself, but a great metaphor to explore the circle of control and the time and energy management resource attached to it is essentially thinking of it like this: the things that I can control is the present. I get to make a choice of if I want to drink from this bottle of water. I get to make a choice if after this event is done, if I'm going to go to bed and grab, like this amazing amount of sleep and just chill and relax. That's something that I can influence. But things that I cannot control is potentially the past, right? So things I can control is the present. What am I going to do right now? Things that I can influence is the future, steps that I can take to create a future that I want to live in, the ideal future that I want to live in. And things that I cannot control is in the past. No matter how much I want to change it, I can't really change it. Right? I can learn from it, but I can't really change my past. And so that makes it a tad bit easier for us to understand where we are putting our time and energy and our other resources. Things that we can control in the present, I would invite you to input about 80% or the majority of your time and energy on it, because these are the active decisions we are taking right now for our present. We have absolute control over it. Things that we can influence, we don't really know how it's going to impact our future. We can kind of be like, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to land at my destination, right? Potentially land at my destination. So I'm going to only input 20% of my energy. I don't know how things are going to change, which is once again a really important conversation for this summit. It's like we don't really know how things are going to change, how the future is going to change. So we are only going to input a minimum amount of energy on things that we can potentially influence, but we're going to input a majority of our energy on things that we can control right now in this moment. And things we cannot control, we're going to let it be. We're going to let it go. We're going to learn from it, but we're not going to input a lot of our energy and time and other resources on it. We can't change it. So we need to let it go. I hope this is landing so far. I hope it is making sense for everyone. Please feel free to put it in the comments if you have any questions so far. And yeah, if it is landing, let's move on to the next part of this particular session, which is navigating our emotions. Now, when we talk about the circle of control, things that we can control, things we can influence, things that we cannot control, it often leads to a lot of emotions. When we are in a scenario, in a world where things are rapidly changing and we don't really know where how things are going to change and how it's going to impact us and the people around us and the world in general, we can get a lot of emotions that arise in us at this point in time. What we can do is navigate those emotions. Now, here's something important before we get started on this particular journey. What I would love to share with you is that no emotion is good or bad. There's no positive emotion or a negative emotion. An emotion exists because it's like, hey, so this particular situation happened and that led to this particular reaction, this particular emotion coming up. And emotion is almost like a signal of this particular thing happening and our body reacting and responding to it. So I'd love to invite you to look at it from a perspective of not it being a positive or a negative emotion, but more so being just an emotion, just the way our body is reacting and responding to scenarios. When we can embrace our emotions, we can navigate them a lot better, as opposed to it being like, this is, like, for example, a lot of people consider anger to be a negative emotion. And so it's like, oh, I hate anger, I hate being angry, blah, blah, blah. Understandable. I hate being sad, I hate being depressed. It's a negative emotion for a lot of people, but why is it happening? What is leading us to experiencing it? Once we navigate or we learn to embrace said emotions and navigate said emotions, a lot of times we are able to understand the origin, the reason why said emotion is coming into place, what are we responding to, what is our body reacting and responding to. Once we understand the origin, we are able to better support ourselves or receive help from others to support us during that origin point. Whatever is leading us to experience that emotions, we are able to better receive support around it. So, number one, embrace your emotions. They are not your enemy, they are not something that's here to destroy you. It's just a reaction, it's just a response to a situation arising. So, navigating our emotions, when we have a conversation around navigating emotions, this is a tool that I kind of came up with to make it a bit more easier for me to navigate my own emotions, and it's the NNAALLM technique, which is essentially, when we have an emotion, we notice it. We notice that, oh, I am experiencing grief right now, or I am feeling extremely motivated right now, I'm feeling hyped right now, or I'm feeling sad, depressed right now, or I'm feeling very, mellow right now. Like, my energy is at a low, my happiness is at a low right now. It's not like all hyper energetic person that I am in the morning, when after have had my, third cup of coffee or something like that. I don't drink that much coffee, but yeah, after I'm caffeinated enough, my energy is at a different level, so my mood is going to be completely different. But all that to say, the very first thing that we need to do is notice that we are experiencing an emotion, that we are reacting to something, we are responding to something. So we are noticing that an emotion exists. The next thing that we do is we name the emotion. Now this is really important because a lot of times we kind of boil it all down into, yeah, I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling happy. Like, there are 3 to 5 emotions that we really focus on, but there are so many other emotions. And if you Google after our conversation is done, there are emotion wheels that you will find on Google. Or there's also this really cool tool called the mood meter that I personally use a lot within my community and with my clients as well. And it is a tool created by Mark Brackett, and it essentially tells us where our what our mood is based on our energy and our happiness level. Like, how are we feeling right now, like, what's the happiness level, but also what's the energy level, is it really high or is it really low. And it's a really cool tool, and I would love to invite you to check that out, because it makes naming your emotion a bit easier, a bit better. And so once you name it, you understand it a bit more. Right? So far we have noticed that we are experiencing an emotion, we have named our emotion. What we're going to do next is we're going to acknowledge it. Now, this is really important because a lot of times, and there is a tad bit of overlap, and sometimes it kind of leads to confusion. But for me personally, noticing that I'm responding to something and acknowledging that I'm responding to something is really important. And there's a really important line in there, because I can be like, yeah, I'm noticing that I'm experiencing something, but I won't acknowledge it. I won't be like, yeah, and I'm responding to something. I'm just going. A lot of times we brush it aside, especially when we are in a fast-paced environment where we don't have, or we feel like we don't have time and energy to focus on an emotion, so we don't really acknowledge it. We brush it aside. But acknowledging is really important when we are navigating our emotions. So we acknowledge that, yeah, I'm feeling, for example, anger. Yes, I'm feeling angry right now. That's an acknowledgement that anger exists in me right now. Acceptance, that's the next A, is really important because you can acknowledge that anger exists, but we don't really accept it. We don't really accept that I'm angry because of this particular situation. Oftentimes it's like, yeah, anger exists, but like, I can't believe I'm angry about this. I can't believe, like, this particular situation led me to feel grief again. This particular situation led me to feel happiness again. A lot of times that acceptance can be a difficult pill to swallow, but it is also a really important pill to swallow. Understanding and accepting that this emotion is here right now because of this particular scenario, right? So accepting our emotions. So far we have noticed our emotion, we have named our emotion, we have acknowledged that it exists in us, within us, we have accepted that this emotion exists because of this particular scenario. What we are going to do next is lean into it. And this is a really fun idea that I have. And it's also something that I've kind of taken from parts, essentially parts meditation. And it's essentially a way for us to be able to imagine our emotion, right? So what I do when I am feeling an emotion at a very high level is I sit down and I imagine it as a blob. I put it into whatever shape I want to put it. And then what I do is have a conversation. And I know it sounds very hippie. I know it sounds very, what does that mean? Like, Madhurima, you're so dumb. Like, no. Leaning into our emotion is a great way for us to, and having that conversation is a great way for us to actually understand why this particular situation is leading us to experience this particular emotion. This is why. For example, when we are healing through something, healing is not a straight line. Or when we are growing in our careers, growth is not a straight line. We can take 10 steps forward, 5 steps back, and that can lead us to experience a specific emotion. Or when we feel like we have healed through a particular situation already, but a reminder of that comes or triggers us, we can go back into that emotion we felt when we first experienced a particular scenario, and that can lead to additional emotions. So if I'm feeling hurt because of an event that triggered me feeling hurt and has triggered me feeling hurt in the past, I can also feel anger around it, like, oh my god, I thought I've already healed through this, like, why is this happening again? I thought I'd worked on this already. So there can be multiple emotions kind of covering up the core emotion. So leaning into it and having a conversation like, hey, so what's up, why are we here, what is happening, and having that conversation. And you can close your eyes and imagine it being the Inside Out movie. Like, we have different emotions, we have different shapes, and having that conversation actually helps us understand that, oh, I'm angry because I'm still feeling hurt about a situation that I've already healed from. So I'm feeling anger around that. But then when you have that conversation with anger and you let it go, you can then have a conversation with the core emotion that you're feeling, which is hurt, and lean further into it. So leaning into your emotions is really important, and then letting it go. Once again, we'll be tapping a tad bit into that in the very next slide. But letting go of our emotions. Uh, at the start of this conversation, I mentioned that emotions are not positive or negative, they are just a reaction or a response to a particular situation, to an origin story, essentially. And when we embrace our emotions, when we have conversations, and we are not like pointing our fingers at our emotions as being the core element, like, oh my god, anger, this is all your fault, as opposed to, oh, the situation arise which led me to feel angry and led you to be created back into the space. When we have that conversation and we understand why specific things are happening, what's the pattern, and then we work on the start of the pattern. We work on, okay, yeah, you know what, that's understandable. It's understandable that we are angry right now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making me aware of this particular situation leading to your existence. Let's work on it. What have we done in the past that has worked? What have we done in the past that hasn't really worked? What can we do now so that this situation doesn't hurt us again, or this situation doesn't lead us to feeling grief? And then once we understand it, we can implement it, and then the cycle might continue in the future. You might experience the same cycle happening all over again, but you are able to heal and work on it and get out of experiencing those emotions, not from a space of hate, but from a space of, okay, yeah, let's work on it. This worked, this didn't work. Let's shift things so that we can work on making sure that this origin thingy is not leading us to experiencing hurt again. Right? So we let go. Once we have learned everything we can learn from our emotions, we let go. We are like, thank you so much for making me aware of your presence. And then once we let go of it with peace, then we move on. Then we move on to whatever life awaits us on the other side of this conversation. And I think this is really important because when we're talking about navigating emotions, once again, people are often looking at it from a very negative lens, like, okay, anger. We're going to talk about what made us experience anger. We are going to talk about what made us experience grief, sadness, this feeling of, just depression. But then it can also be kind of angled at, okay, what made us feel joy today, like why are we so happy today, what's happening here. Leaning into it and understanding what led us to experience joy can be a great way for us to repeat that origin story multiple times so that we keep getting joy from it. We keep feeling happy because a particular situation is happening, right? The more we learn, it's all about self awareness. But the more we learn about this, the easier it gets for us to understand ourselves and navigate our emotions, and either repeat or pause or work on how we can ensure that the origin doesn't happen all over again for us to experience this particular cycle. I hope this is landing so far. I hope this is making sense. It's not gone too much into the woo woo space. Okay, awesome, awesome. Let's talk about letting go with peace. Now, letting go with peace is something that it feels pretty chaotic, but it is something that is very, very relieving, I feel, at the end of the whole journey. And you can let go with peace in multiple ways. One of the ways that I have found to be the best ways to letting go of my emotions with peace is um, by getting it out of my body. Here's what I mean. At the end of the day, emotion is nothing but energy in motion, a specific energy in our body coming in, and we are like, a specific thing happened, we had an emotion. A lot of times we either brush it aside or we kind of like shove it deep down and hope that we don't have to look at it, but then that energy gets stuck, and that leads to us experiencing a lot of hurt. And there are a lot of books that talk about this. There is, you know uh, conversations around how trauma stays in our body because of specific things. And so it's really important for us to move that energy, and navigating our emotions helps us move that energy, not let it get stuck, not let it get brushed aside or shoved deep down. We actually let it flow out of us. So when we let go with peace, one of my favorite techniques to do that is essentially grab a piece of paper and then just start writing what is happening to me. So it's a pretty much a very dear diary moment, if you will. Like, dear diary, this happened today, and that led me to feel this, and that led me to feel this. And at the start, it feels very silly. It absolutely does. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like, what are we doing? Like, I'm a 30-year-old woman. Why am I doing that? But what it actually helps us do is, even though it feels silly at start, once we start writing and we start expressing our emotions, it's a great way for us to move that energy out of our body and into that piece of paper. And even though it feels very hiccupy and it feels like, you have to cross multiple hurdles to get to that flow, once you start writing, you will eventually reach that space where you're just like, okay, I guess that's what I was feeling today. And what we can do post that is just grab that piece of paper, and you can either keep it in your diary for the next time that you experience said emotion. or the next time you experience this particular origin story or pattern, you can go back and you're like, ah, last time I felt exactly this, and this is what I did, this is what I felt, and it helps you to navigate your emotions a bit better. Personally, for me, I prefer to just, grab a candle, light it up, and then just burn the paper very carefully, but burn it nonetheless, because it is a great way for me to just feel that energy actively getting out of my body and then disappearing into the mist. And that feels very, very relieving. Let's say you don't want to do that. What you can also do is grab a friend, be like, hey, so I'm gonna rant at you for like 5 minutes. I've put on a timer. Are you open to it? Is that something that you're open to right now? You have the space for that. And if they say yes, you put on a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and then you start complaining. Complain your butt off. Just be like, this happened and that happened, and yeah. And then what you're essentially doing is getting it out of you. And after that timer rings, once again, at the start, it might feel like, what is happening? I don't really want to do this. I feel very whiny. I feel like no one understands me. Why am I doing this? Blah, blah, blah. But then once you start talking and once you start complaining actively and you're giving yourself the space to do so in a safe and non judgmental space with a safe and non judgmental person, it can feel very relieving. It can just let you to let go of all your worries, and you don't even have to do it with your friend. You can just put on a timer and do it on a daily basis if you want to, with yourself in front of the mirror if you want to. Whatever works best for you, whatever you're the most comfortable with, but get it out of your system, either through writing or through speaking it out loud, but get it out of your system. And the importance of having that timer is so that you are not constantly looping and spiraling in the same space. Because that can happen, right? Like once we start complaining, we are like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do the same exact thing about the same exact conversation again and again and again. We can kind of get stuck like a broken record. Navigate your emotions, take as much time as you need to, but sometimes it is very easy for us to get stuck in this spiral without realizing that we are stuck in that spiral. So having that 5 to 10 minute timer is a great way for us to be like, this is a contained space, I'm going to get my emotions out. But then after those 10 minutes, after the timer rings, we are going to take a deep breath. We are going to sit in nature for a while or just do something that rejuvenates us. And then we are going to find a solution for this particular problem. So you can let it go with peace in multiple ways. You can write it all down and save it, write it all down and burn it, or just speak it out loud, either with a friend or with yourself, and get it out of your body. That is a great way to let go with peace. There are multiple techniques, but I wanted to leave you with, once again, tangible techniques and tools that you can implement in your daily life. So yeah, that's letting go with peace. Hope it is landing with everyone so far. Let's go, let's go. Thank you so much, Kara. Uh, the last thing that we're going to be talking about is creating constants. And I think this is really important in a world that's constantly changing. Is once again, it feels like things are out of our control. We can't really do anything. And what creating constants does is it creates spaces in our daily life where we are like, I am in absolute control of this particular moment. And that can look like whatever. It can look like when I wake up in the morning, 5 minutes on the bed, I'm going to think about how my day is going to look. I'm going to think about the future, the ideal future that I want to live in. Or it can look like after I wake up and I've freshened up, done all the things that I need to do. I'm going to go and say good morning to all the flowers, which I do. Absolutely, imagine me frolicking in my balcony garden and saying hi and good morning to all the flowers, because I absolutely do that. But it's a great way for me to ground myself. Or uh, every single day, while I'm having my lunch break, I'm going to watch a YouTube video. Or at night, I'm going to go out and stargaze. Whatever that looks like, creating constants essentially is creating pockets of time and space in your life where you're like, no matter what happens, no matter how much life changes, I will be able to do these things. I'll be able to step into these pockets of control, these pockets of constants in my life, no matter what happens. And my invitation to you as we kind of wrap this space up is have a thinky and come up with as many fun constants as you can. That's your homework. If nothing else, come up with fun constants. And don't you can brainstorm like multiple things that you can do, but I would invite you to start with at least one of them. Brainstorm multiple activities that you can try, but at least start implementing one of them on a daily basis to see what that looks like and feels like for you. And let me know if that empowers you as life changes around us. So, yeah, that is creating constants. I hope this made sense. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Madhurima. I loved every minute of that. And there's a few things that I wanted to say in regards to your presentation. First of all, let's take a step back for a moment and really think about what she was saying. She talked about control. Now, when you're in that space, when your mental health is really, really not just working with you, it feels like you have no control. That's not true. You do. You have control in specific ways. And the way that she explained that chart is very important because it breaks it down into three very, very easy things to think about. Yes, maybe, and no. That's pretty much it. So, what can you control? What can you influence? And what can't you control? Super simple. Now, before we get started with our next speaker, I really want to talk about what she's going to be bringing to this event. Kara is one of my very good friends, and I've known her for a very, very long time. This is actually her second time at the Survivor Summit. She presented last year as well. And she has taught me over the last 15 some odd years that you don't have to live quietly. You can live out loud. You can live bright and shining and crazy and weird, and nobody has the right to tell you what you can be. So, in that spirit, I'm going to bring Kara on stage, and we are going to listen to Kara talk about the Kara method.
Thank you so much, Randy. I'm so excited to be here again. I love that you do this. I love you. I love everything Mata Harima said. Actually, I'm really, really glad that she went first. So mine's going to be short, but that is because I'm a neurospicy leadership development coach. And what I know for my brain and my spice is that I'm really good at the intellectual side of all of this. All that makes sense. I was like, the tracking tracks, the pattern, yes. What I struggled with the most was embodying that, right? I could logically know, let your freak flag fly. That's how the other freaks can find you. And then also allowing my nervous system to regulate around that reality has been a whole thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. When the world gets loud, how we can regulate using the CARE method. And this is all about actionable tools from the spice rack for that sensory chaos and emotional storms. It's going to be interactive, it's going to be real talk, it's going to be structured reflections and actions. It is straight from my, slow it down, neurospicy leadership mind, direct, simple, embodied, and engaging. Ultimately, I want to help normalize the neurodivergent needs, the reality that the neurodivergent brain is at all times processing so many patterns and making connections. And we can build agency for ourselves through micro actions. We're going to recognize a lot of those signals that Mata Harima was talking about of overload, or emotional hijacking, and get out of our heads and back into our body with some experiences. And then I'm going to give you this as a repeatable regulation framework so that you have this experience that is also actionable going forward. So let's start. Are we ready? We're going to clarify first. So just show of hands, or just shout, that's me, into the comments. Raise your hand if your brain has ever melted down in the middle of a conversation, a meeting, just walking into a store because the senses are sensory and the world is very loud. And now my system is dysregulated. I have. So let's start by clarifying something I believe everyone here will know, and it's important to say out loud. Our system is giving us information, not attitude. It might feel like attitude, but it's information. So let's experience that. Are we ready? We're going to go directly into some actionables. Go ahead and place one hand on your chest and one hand on, oh, you can't see that down there, down here on your belly. Okay. And then close your eyes for just a few seconds. What is loud in your mind right now, in your world right now? And is it the same as what is loud in your body? Just take a second, not with judgmentalness. We're not attaching that right and wrong, like Mata Harima said, right? Positive, negative, or relative. Just feel what is going on in your brain and where it's showing up in your body. Your body talks louder when we've been ignoring the whispers. So let's learn to listen before it starts screaming at us as an option. So now that we have clarified that it is the brain-body connection that allows the meat suit universe that is us to navigate a universe full of other meat suits, let's assess how we do that. And I love that Mata Hari makes the circles because I use a not dissimilar way. The thing that I do is I call it the magic 3. And instead of there being 3 parts, there's just 2. So think of it as like either side of your brain, right? There's 2 sides of your brain, there's 2 sides of life, things you can control and things you cannot. Of the things that you can control, there are only 3. How you think, how you speak, how you behave. To Stephen Covey's point, behavior is how we influence, and speaking is how we influence. So there's a little crossover there, which I think is worth saying. And I've simplified it down to 3. So now that we know that things are up in our world, how do we figure out what it is and what to do next without falling into a complete meltdown or spiral? So check yourself, back of your heart and your belly, right? Do a little magic 3 check-in right now. What are you thinking about right now? That this feels woo-woo, also hard, and oddly working? Love that for me. What are you speaking to yourself? That internal voice? Are you saying loving, kind, supportive, understanding, grace-filled things? Or like so many of us, are you maybe a little vindictive, mean, and rude to yourself? No judgmentalness, just and what are you doing or not doing and avoiding? Where is that showing up? If you can answer that question, then here's a really quick tool. Sensory thermometer is what we're going to call this. And it's a really quick scale from 1 to 5. So 1 being like, I am so calm, I am a Zen master. To 5, which is I am literally on the cusp of a meltdown, perhaps already in burnout and headed towards shutdown. Okay. It's a quick assessment on a scale of 1 through 10. How's your mental noise right now? Are you just here watching the summit, or do you have 16 tabs open while also doing something on your phone and the TV's going in the background while you're also in the... No judgment, fullness. But on a scale of 1 to 5, how is your mental noise? How about sound sensitivity? Are you locked in with earbuds so it's all pretty quiet right now? We're not getting a lot of, or is it one of those days where you're listening to the summit plus you have music going and the TV is on a scale of what, of calm to meltdown? How's your sound sensitivity right now? Mental sound. Touch. How are you feeling in your clothes, in your chair, in your body? How's the touch, comfort or discomfort? How about emotional intensity? Like everything is going great. My brain is actually pretty aligned and it's not too loud and I'm really comfortable in my clothes, but I am like vibrating right now. Like, is it good? I don't know. It's emotion. On a scale of 1 through 5. This is a really fast embodied tool that we can use to assess not only how we're thinking, speaking, and behaving, but how that shows up in all of those places. What is the mental noise? What is our sound sensitivity? How is our touch comfort level? And how about that emotional intensity? To Mata Harima's point, simply becoming aware of it is what's going to allow you to impact that. I just saw the spice rack thing popped up. That is one of the tools in the spice rack. There you go. So we always, in the CARE method, we clarify some basic over-understanding. Turns out you're a meat suit full of hormone soup, and if you don't acknowledge the meat suit and the hormone soup, one or the other is going to shut down. And then we assess our magic 3. What can we do to actually impact that for ourselves? But we always realign around the we of it. If we've done the me work, then we get to do the we work. So regulation isn't about calming down, it's about coming back to you. To Randy's point, I don't need you to calm down. Be loud, be big, be bright, be shiny. Love that. If you are too much, that's just enough for me. If you're not enough, also just enough for me. I love that. I'm in here for that. Regulating our nervous system is reminding ourselves that no matter what our brain is saying, we're not actually being chased by a tiger right now. And we can address the situation from ourselves. So here is a really fun realignment strategies menu. Here are some practical more things that you can tangibly do right here, right now, if any of those things are coming up. So I'm going to invite you to choose the one you need most right now. We're going to start with either resetting our breath. Try smell the soup, cool the soup, in like a flower, out like a candle. The fun thing about breath regulation is there are so many layers to the connections around why this works so well. So not only is it a parasympathetic nervous system regulation tool of oxygen to the brain, in the English language, inspiration, like your brain is inspired to some creative front, is the same word as inspiration, like inhalation. So often inspiration leads to inspiration because your parasympathetic nervous system settles down and your brain can function better. Smell the flower, blow out the candle. Smell the soup, blow out the soup. Swapping a sensory input, noise canceling headphones, weighted hoodies or blankets, different textures. One of my favorite tools is to go get those sensory stickers, and like one part is fuzzy and one part is rough and one part is bumpy and one part's really smooth, and just being able to navigate all of those so that my brain has something to attach to specifically. I love it. I love it. Shift in environment. Literally go outside. Just stand up. Shut the door. Open a door. Open a cabinet, unless you get irritated by that, in which case open it and shut it again. Love that for you. Sit underneath a table. I cannot tell you how many times having a tiny human Simply getting down onto the ground and experiencing the world from a different point of view literally changed my point of view. Things that were wholly insurmountable 5 minutes ago, I'm like, oh, but if you look at it like that, hmm. So that's another one of those parasympathetic nervous system resets. You can't go and do a thing if you're being chased by a tiger. So if your body is freaking out, if your brain is freaking out, for all of the very valid reasons, you can give it something to hold on to. Yes, don't fit into the box. Sit in the box. Stand on the box. Kick the box. Yeah. Regulation words. Saying things like, I need a body break. I've been sitting in a stationary spot for a really long time. I don't know any of your fixation times. If anybody else has gone 16 hours without eating, drinking, or going to the bathroom because your brain is locked in. And then you come out and you're like, I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm angry, the world is mean. And then you go to the bathroom, drink some water, and eat some food, and you're like, life is pretty good, actually, not that big a deal anymore. So being able to teach ourselves to hear when our body needs a break, especially since as a neurodivergent human, we are often taught to not listen to our bodies. Don't stem, be quiet. Make sure you're holding still. I don't care if the clothes are uncomfortable, just be here. And so we learn to tamp down all of those whispers until our body starts screaming. And by that point, we're already well over the hump, and backpedaling can be really hard. Or saying things simply like, my brain is buffering. When people say things and you need just that extra minute to process, you can go, buffering. Okay, my thought on that is, you are allowed to have regulation words, regulation statements to not only communicate that to yourself and your own body that you are listening, but to let other people know that we're doing this with them. So I'm going to say those 4 again. I would love to hear in the comments which one you would love the most. Resetting with our breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Swapping sensory inputs, quieting the world with weighted blankets, noise canceling, texture play. Shifting our environments, literally getting out of the place we are feeling stuck into somewhere else so that we can come back. Literally 5 seconds different, but an entirely different human being sometimes. And then regulation words, being able to hear our body and speak for it to ourselves and others. 404 shortcut, yes. I love those as regulation words. So the world, when we talk about the realigning around the we of life, the world will not always adapt. I think anybody in this space is like, yeah, I know. That's why we're so good at adapting. And you can build microsystems that help you recenter faster. One of the greatest gifts of a neurodivergent brain is that we don't have problems. We have systems for that. Here are some systems for that. And with this, we get to achieve. We get to achieve where we stop waiting for the world to calm down. I'm going to validate that feeling. And we spend a lot of time waiting. That's one of those things we can't control. Refer back to Mata Harima, right? What we can do is start building rituals that work for our brains. What does that mean for what you need in this moment? So, quick writing prompt. I'm going to leave you with a to-doable today. What's one rescue move that you can use next time you feel yourself slipping into that sensory or emotional overload void. Doesn't have to be the right answer. You may change it over and over again, especially if this is new and you're just starting to embody your own experience and get out of the headspace and start listening into this. Trust that you will get a lot of things wrong, and that's actually winning. So settle your nervous system into that. Failure isn't failure if we're learning. And practicing in this space, allowing yourself to figure out what rescue moves work in which situations will fill out your spice rack, your toolkit of things that you can do. So let's clarify and wrap all of this up one more time through the CARE method. Clarify what is really happening, not just how am I reacting to it. There is what is within me, there is what is within you, and then there is reality somewhere in the middle of that Venn diagram. So what's really happening? Is the world just too loud? Do your armpits itch to a point where you literally can't think of anything else? Everything is harder when your armpits itch. And then you don't have to react. You can respond. Then we're going to assess the signals. Use that sensory thermometer. Use your magic 3. Feel what your body is trying to say to you instead of thinking of it as a overreactive teenager who you're tired of. Valid as that feeling might be, what if it was just your body and your brain trying to communicate that things are not right now? What if you're not broken? What if it's just communication? And then realign with tiny actions that work for your body. The reason that that is so powerful in a we space is if you are taking care of yourself, not only do you get to model for other people how they can do that, you also get to gift the world a healthier you. And wouldn't it be nice if everybody did that? And that is how you achieve peace, power, presence, but not perfection, because that has never been the goal. Sensory overload is not a personality flaw. It is not a broken brain. It is not a damaged something that needs fixing. Emotional dysregulation is not a failure. They are signs that you are alive, that you are aware, and that you need a rest. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to know yourself. And that is what the CARE method is for, to practice building those neural pathways, not just being intellectually capable of navigating the world, but also emotionally and physically capable. And the thing is, you have those skills. Permission to practice them. I believe in you. And that is all I have, Randy.
Well, thank you so much, Kara. I always love listening to you. Okay, I'm going to pop you down now. And I have a few things to say about dealing with grief just kind of as a general thing, because this summit is always focused on suicide. Let's be very blunt about it. This entire event is let's take that off. This entire event focuses on what it means to you, what it means to me, what mental health looks like when it gets past that point. Now, some of the things that Kara was talking about actually lead us into our next speaker. The next subject that we're going to talk about is communication as a neurodiverse individual. As Kara was saying, we don't process information like normal people. We don't like long and drawn out. So that being said, I'm going to bring Natasha up here. And
Hello.
no, stop clicking on things. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. We're good. I just gotta fix things. Okay, so this is Miss Natasha. Now you said that you needed someone to speak with, so we're
Well,
going to bring up Mackenzie.
perfect.
You can speak with her, and let's add this up on here. Mackenzie, if you want to turn on your camera, please. I don't know what she's doing.
Let me start a little bit different. You know, I don't know if you remember when we were starting to talk about me doing a presentation for neurodiverse. I said I have struggles with the terminology because I don't
Yes.
use that. For me,
Yeah, you are very, from what I remember, you are very against labels just in general.
I
And
don't like labels.
yeah, and when I said the term neurodiverse, you said, "Excuse me?"
Yeah. It's a field that I didn't dabble with, but the interesting part listening to Kara just now was that I have realized while I was preparing for that workshop and just listening to her that I have the tendencies, but I don't label them, which is so interesting. The way that I work with is I see people as individuals, and everybody is their own in their own place, in their own space, and they have their own language and they have their own way to communicate. So I try to find a common ground. That being said, I think my slides are maybe a little bit off topic, but I still want to go with them.
No,
And you hear my voice,
we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going because communication is one of the most important things that I talk about all the time.
yes.
If you do not know how to communicate with the person that you're looking at, then there's no point to even try and start a conversation.
So
Because go ahead.
saying that the perspective that I put it down was more from the perspective of not being the neurodivergent. Saying that.
You know what? I still want to hear it. So I'm going to
Okay.
remove myself. And here's Miss Mackenzie for you to interact with like yes.
So yes, communication as diverse individual. That's what I called it, because I find we are all diverse, and I have some exercises basically that we can play with. And so, oops, that's me again. Too fast. So we explore communication as unique individuals using playful and practical exercises. One thing that has been very funny is idioms, because I'm German and Germans tend to use idioms not the way that they're supposed to be in English, or they don't get the English meaning. And part of that is the not understanding of what is meant if it's literally taken. And what I wanted to do with that workshop is basically getting people the awareness, or giving people the awareness, no, offering people the awareness. Language is important. Offering people the awareness that if we bring compassion to the table, and if we try to see the other side and try to see how others are working, how others are functioning, the body language and all of that, how all of a sudden things that have been an obstacle become none, because we can react differently, we can respond differently, and work from a different platform. So let's start with the first one, if I click the right thing. Idioms. So if you take a sentence with an idiom, and Mackenzie, can you pick one? Your favorite idiom that you use?
I actually cannot think of any idioms right now.
That's the thing, right? When you're put on the spot, you cannot. And we're using them all the time. One would be kick the bucket or break the ice, right? So if you do a sentence with like, I like to break the ice by saying, hello, I'm Natasha. So if I take that literal meaning, where's my mouse? So I like to go and hack the ice sheet off the water to say, hi, I'm Natasha. And that can be perceived like that. And it doesn't matter if it's an idiom or not, but sometimes what you say can be perceived like that. So which version makes more sense?
Probably break the ice.
For you, because you learned it. And that's the thing. Whatever we use is what we're used to. It's not what the other person is used to. Language is an obstacle, and also upbringing is an obstacle. If you take the next one, is direct versus indirect communication. If I communicate, like if I'm German or really German, I'm blunt. I would say, go do that thing, right? The Canadian way would be, would you please go and take care of that? Politely, indirectly, which feels clearer, which is more respectful. The German upbringing is typically to say, go do that thing. Go just do it, right? But when you take the bluntness out of it and become respectful and polite, then all of a sudden it becomes softer and gentler, and it's easier to take for somebody else, or easier to accept for somebody else. My mouse doesn't want to work. Emotional signal mismatch. So if I were to say, and there she disappears on me. If I were to say to somebody, with a bite, and I can't even do that. That's so funny, because I'm so much in my awareness. I cannot smile at you and say my cat died. I cannot. That was one of the things that I wanted as a cue to try to say to you, yeah, my cat died. Or if I say, my mother gave me a birthday gift. Facial expressions can be misleading. And I don't know how that is for you, Mackenzie. How easy is it for you to read a facial expression?
Are you okay, Mackenzie? It looks like you're having some technical difficulties. I think she might have froze.
Yeah, it looks like it. So then let's ask Randy. Randy, how easy is it for you to read emotions and facial expressions?
I guess it depends on the person. If I know the person, like if I've known the person for a while, then it's pretty easy. If it's someone that I don't know very well, then I question myself a lot.
If you start listening to the other person with your heart and with your gut feeling, the emotion in the face might not be the same that's expressed in the voice, but you will pick up on the really base emotion, because your heart will definitely know better. Your gut will know better. Your brain might not. Your brain will read it as a certain emotion, and the voice usually translates emotions differently than facial expressions. So when you start listening to the subtle notes in the voice, if there's a quivering, if there's not like mine today, because mine is stressed, but if you're talking to somebody, if you really listen to it, you can hear there's a waver, there might be a higher pitch than normal. So all of that can be ways where they express a different thing that they're saying, which gives you a possibility to ask, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay what you're saying? Can I help you? Whatever. All of those things are possible. Talking down versus respectful. So if I explain a task like, oh, here's that thing, and go there and do that. It's the German thing again. Or if I go, if you please go over there in the shelf, you will find, you can go out and work whatever you need to do. It's different than being just condescending. And I think that's one of the things that we often see in situations when people are stressed. They tend not to be respectful. They tend to be in their world. They tend to be somewhere else, not present. And that's one of the biggest things. If you're communicating with somebody who's not present, they're definitely not paying attention to you. They're definitely not paying attention to your needs. They're probably caught in their own web. Hi, Mackenzie. And that's another thing where you can actually step away or ask them, are you really here? Is there something going on? Can we communicate? And find a way around those holdbacks, basically. Processing speed and pauses. I find if you keep a pause when you're talking, often it gives you a pause to really say what you want to say and not just blurt out whatever there is. On the other hand, it can make other people very uncomfortable because they're not sure if you're processing or not. But taking those pauses and slowing your speech while you're talking can be a good thing to get words out that you usually wouldn't get out. And also help your brain to calm down and really focus on what you want to say. If I were to say, Mackenzie, like before, I talked to you and I didn't get anything back, it made
I do
me
apologize about that.
No, don't seriously. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable about that. I just want to say it made me go like, oh, what's going on, right? But I'm comfortable in my own skin, so I don't really have to prove anything by making you talk to me. But others will not be that way. So if you were saying something to me and I just keep quiet and don't answer, what does that feel to you?
Sometimes it feels like they're not really paying attention if I'm speaking to the other person, but sometimes it helps me get out my full idea in my brain before they say.
Mm-hmm. Can you see that I needed a break to voice what I wanted to
Yes.
voice? So instead of going, oh, they don't talk to me, they don't answer me, just see it as, yes, I'll give you the time. I offer you that space to get to where you need to get to and to slow down and take that breath and become present, right? Silence doesn't mean something is uncomfortable. Silence just means somebody needs a break to get to where they need to get to. Sensory overload stimulation. Kara just touched into that very nicely, so I'm not going to say much about that, but I guess everybody knows that situation that you're shopping or in a restaurant and you want to have a conversation one-on-one and everybody's talking and talking and talking. You have the choice to get out of there. You have the choice to say, come on, let's step out and have a conversation one-on-one outside, not in the noise. We're setting up the way that we create our circumstances. We are creating the circumstances. We set the boundaries. We are in charge of our life. And if we're not making sure that we are seen, heard, or understood by making clear this is how I communicate, this is what I need right now, then nobody will. Because everybody is stuck in their own head and thinking about their own stuff. So if you were in that situation, Mackenzie, like let's say you were at a big party and a friend wants to talk to you and you cannot understand, what do you do?
Usually if I go to parties, I would drag them to the side or go to where it's a little bit quieter. That way they're still enjoying the night and we can be a part of the group, but still also talk to each other.
I sometimes have the problem that I cannot listen. or I listen, but I cannot process. And then I have to ask 5 times, what did you say? And what did you say? And I feel like, am I getting deaf or whatever? But I know that my hearing is very acute. Working with sound and singing bowls sharpened my hearing very wide. But at the same time, the capacity of processing is not there. To this day, not everybody has understood that in my friend group, and especially not my parents. They then come, you never listen. And I'm like, I listen, but I cannot hear. So again, it's a matter of making clear is I cannot process what you're saying. It's my fault for not telling them it's too loud in here. I cannot process right now. Info dump. Yeah, people tend to ramble on, like me today.
I do the same.
So give me an info dump. Just your favorite thing.
Talking about Lilo and Stitch. Stitch, to be specific.
Go
I
on.
have to laugh. I have to laugh because her and my boyfriend at this point are essentially like battling to see who can have more Stitch in their life. It's insanity.
So naturally, you would have a conversation with him about Stitch, and you bought your favorite Stitch, and you keep on going, and you keep on going. So that might be for some people too much information. And what do you do? What do you do when something like that happens to you? When somebody's talking like over your head?
I shut down. If for example, my partner starts talking about something while I am mid conversation with him, I usually just shut down and let him talk.
So you're not having a conversation anymore. You're not having a dialogue.
No.
You're having a monologue. Did you ever say that's over my head? What does he do?
He's actually been getting a lot better when he sees that I stop talking. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then we get right back to where I left off. I just give him sort of a little dazed off look, and then he realizes.
But he knows you. So how can you set that up for
Yes.
somebody who doesn't know you?
Usually I just say something along the lines of, can we talk about your thing in a second while after I finish my sentence, and then go from there.
So you're setting up the circumstances again to making sure that you're heard. So if somebody talks over you or info dumps on you, or if somebody engages really in, like, we're engaging in conversation, right? I'm not rambling on, even so I could do that, but still we're engaging in conversation. What is more comfortable for you?
Sometimes it just feels different.
It just feels different. Okay, so that's my brain now going, we didn't communicate. Because I'm asking, is the engaged conversation with you comfortable, or is it more comfortable for you when I dump on you? And I don't think I don't think, yeah. I think usually it would be more the engaged conversation about talking about Lilo and Stitch and tell me about, and I go, I don't know any much about Lilo and Stitch, so tell me about it, right? getting Mackenzie all confused. I'm sorry about that.
I think the issue that she might be having is
Like internet.
I don't think that she's had much of an opportunity to have valuable discourse that was, consistent and not someone dominating the conversation.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a hard one. So here,
I feel like that might be where her silence might be coming from.
so how do you feel about somebody just taking over the talk and dumping anything on you that they can? Mackenzie's coming back with another one. She's not running away from us.
No, I am not.
Sorry.
Just technical difficulties.
So are you comfortable with an engaged conversation?
Sometimes I am, yes. But depending on what the topic is, I would just stay out of it.
Okay. And how do you stay out of it?
I zone out mostly when it's topics that I don't really like, I guess you could say.
Do you switch the topic?
I try not to when I'm talking to somebody, but there are times I do, yes.
Why don't you try to do it?
I grew up in a household where switching topics while somebody else is talking, it wasn't really allowed. So I had just learned to stay quiet until a topic that I like comes up.
Fair. But again, you have the right to say, this is not my topic. Can we switch? It's one of the hardest things, and at the same time one of the easiest things to do. If you phrase it like that, nobody can really blame you for that. And if they do, then they're at fault. Just give me a sec. Sorry.
I was going to say that is not true. There are people that can blame you for it because my brother does it all the time. My brother gets mad at me for having an opinion, and I'm like, you asked my opinion, and now you don't like my opinion. What is happening right now?
Have you ever said we can agree to disagree?
Oh, he doesn't like that. He's like, he either has to come to a consensus, or like both of us have to come to some kind of understanding of some sort, or he has to be right. Like he's very much not a middle ground kind of person.
You have the right to walk away.
Yeah, we haven't spoken in 8 years, so.
I have had people like that in my life that and I'm all for everybody can have their own opinion. But I have had somebody, one of the neighbors, who was very much his opinion and nothing else. And I told him we can agree to disagree or we cannot talk. It's very easy. Because I have a right of my opinion, and I might not be right, but I have a right to have an own opinion.
I think that's really important, especially right now in our culture, because of cancel culture is so popular. Like, you have every right to, one, not even engage in cancel culture. It doesn't matter. Like, what the population around you says about you is whatever. And two, you also have the right to specifically tell them, like, that's not me, you are wrong, and walk away.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to respect cancel culture at all.
And again, that's a label. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. And if you are comfortable in your own skin and you can trust yourself, your instincts, things like that, you will not even get close to. Because you start hearing that and you're going to turn around. That's one of the things that I've learned lately, that there are groups that I'm not even getting close to to the minimum, because it's all not the things that I value, and it's not the thing that draws me. So if you start listening to your body, the resonance will tell you which way to go and which things to avoid. Right. Restricted communication channels. Let's do that. So if somebody can only communicate with yes, no, or text, which usually takes, I'm always clicking the wrong screen, which always takes the dynamic out of the conversation. So if I was to communicate right now with Kara, who is posting, like, commenting like crazy, and I love that. But if I would say to Kara, tell your story, tell me a story on the comments or in the comments, like, how much can you tell? How much is there really coming over? There's facial expression missing. There's tonal expression missing. All of that makes it hard. A failure expert. I love that. How often do you have a voice in your head when you're texting somebody?
Yes.
Yes. But you can be 100% sure it doesn't reach the other person. That's the thing.
No, it does not. The voice in my head usually tells me what to type, but I end up typing a whole different other message.
Well, I type the words in my head. They have a connotation, so they have, like, yay behind it, or they have a, like, yeah. But
It's so funny that you say that, because I read what I'm typing out loud to myself as I'm typing it, so that I don't, like, so the message between my brain and my hands doesn't mess up.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like, the other person doesn't hear that. So they're lacking that part of your conversation. So you got to be specific in what you say and which emojis you use. And I love emojis, but don't want to know how many times I've used them wrong and somebody came back, what you mean? Like, I didn't mean to offend you. Sorry, I meant it as a joke. Or the thing is that we translate symbols, we translate emojis, and Kara, it's voices in our head, yes, all the time. All the time.
It sucks when you're trying to sleep and the voices in the head just don't want to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear you in that. Magnesium was one that helped me because I'm just mellowing out and sleep then. But I started with German in my head. Then I went to English. Then I went back to German. Right now I'm back to English. That's confusing. So when somebody texts, I love you, per se, there is no emotion behind that when you read it. But when he says it or she says it, I love you, I love you, I love you. Can you see how much different underlying meaning is in the voice, is in the tone, is in how you pronounce it? And that's all what we're missing when the communication is shut down to a yes, no, maybe text. And I like texting, honestly. I like to send quick messages. No, actually, I like voice messages better. The only thing is you have to hear them again, which can be problematic when you're in company. Just because they're too loud, or not everybody should hear everything
Needing
that
to
you're
hear.
saying, or yeah. So all of a sudden, you end up with a voice message that you can't hear when you need it. But per se, I prefer voice messages because I can convey, at least in my tone, how I mean things. So how can you bridge the difference between a text, or to convey more in a text what you mean? Emojis, yes. But
I was about
also,
to say, emojis are the biggest part of it.
again, Does everybody understand emojis the same way that you understand them?
That's actually something that's been really fascinating to me lately, is how the next generation are creating their own like speech patterns with emojis, and so the inside jokes that we had with emojis are completely changing now.
Yeah. And you don't want to use certain emojis at all. Even so, we don't see any bad thing behind that. But yeah, no, the thing is, every language, like every generation has their own languages, their own slang, their own acronyms, whatever you want to use though. And yeah, there's some that you don't want to use now. So the next one, before my voice leaves me completely. Thank you for participating, Mackenzie. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
You're totally okay.
What
Don't
I
be
want
sorry, I was the one that put her on the spot. So.
no, it's all good. One of the big things is like everybody communicates differently. For instance, I would rather hug a person to tell them I'm sorry for something or I'm sorry for their loss than saying I'm sorry for your loss. I find that's a sentence that's saying nothing, and it's such a platitude. I would rather hug you and give you a heart to heart, because I think emotionally you can feel that more if I hug you. But not everybody likes to be hugged. That's the other thing. A hand on the shoulder can say more than 1,000 words. But not everybody is physical. Some people are very stuck in their head. And then the other part is generation-wise. Yes, as you just said, the emojis, that's a big thing. The new hieroglyphics. Yes. Absolutely. We gotta see where the other person is in order to find a common ground in our conversation. Is being present, is looking at their body posture, is looking at their face, is looking at her, listening to their voice. Because if you don't see the full picture, it's becoming very, very hard, or it is very hard to communicate on the same level. So if I were to speak to Mackenzie without seeing her, I would not be sure if I'm overstepping, or if she hates me, or if she's just shy. And I would not know how to cope with that. So I would ask more questions, because that's what I do. Is when somebody is not opening up, I ask questions like I did with you before. I start to find a common ground. I start to find a topic where we're common ground, where we can talk about. Not that I know much about Lilo and Stitch other than it's a movie, and I still haven't seen it yet, other than the commercials.
I say watch the animated one before you watch the live action.
Or just don't watch the live action one.
That
That's
too.
also a solution.
Yeah, usually the animes are better.
Yes.
The other part is treat the other person as like you would like to be treated. Because if you have respect for yourself and for others, you show that. You will communicate that. You will present that. You might still put your foot in your mouth like I do quite often. But you are showing the respect to the other person, and then you're trying your best. And that's a big step to have trust and confidence in a conversation. Because why would I communicate with somebody who's not respectful to me? Why would I communicate with somebody who's not? And that's the part again, his way or the highway. The highway, sorry, because I don't have to deal with you. I don't have to deal with somebody who's not respecting my boundaries. And when you pay attention to how the other person reacts, what the person says, how they communicate, how they are in the room, your awareness, and that's the awareness not just of your brain and what you see, it's the awareness of all of you, your heart brain and your gut brain. See the person as a whole. Take it all in. Energetic wise, when you connect, it's so different. Because you're talking, you're responding, you're not reacting, you're responding to the other person on a different level. And when you see somebody and they make you smile before you even know them, you can be sure that's the person you're resonating with. Absolutely. If that person makes you frown before you even know them, you might want to run away because that's usually a better way to get away. I've put all of that in a little workbook that Randy has as a PDF. I hope that opens now instead of the Word document. And I think if you do those exercises with others or hand them out to somebody else where you see there's some issues that they're not communicating or you have trouble communicating, do them as a partner work just to see where you are and where they are for you to find a common ground, because that's what communication is, talking on a common ground, not being of the same opinion, but being in the same space, being present for each other, and being able to voice and hear and sense at the same time. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Natasha. That was amazing, and I loved every minute of it. There was so much information that it's really hard to remember that everyone has their own language, and you always have to meet somebody where they're at. You can't just expect people to meet you on your level if you can't do the same for them.
It's always twofold. It's never just one-sided, and that's the thing what most people don't see and most people don't realize.
Absolutely. So I'm going to bring our next speaker up here. Our next speaker is Robin, and I've connected with her over Facebook a couple times, but the most important thing that she's going to bring to you is she's going to talk about how to be a peer support person to people who are in that mental health crisis. Now, she has her own little presentation, so I'm not going to take the moment from her. Let's add that. All right. And I'm going to pop out of here and let you do your thing.
Well, thanks, Randy. I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, I'm Robin Ruff Wagner, and I'm going to be talking on navigating life with a serious mental illness. So this is both for people supporting those with a serious mental illness and for those of us who live with one. So a little bit about me. I have my Master's of Science in Forensic Psychology. I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor. I'm a musician, writer, and artist. I'm a proud dog mom, and those are my 3 babies, Friday, Orchid, and Mika. And I live with bipolar disorder. So, what is serious mental illness? Any mental illness can be serious, of course. And there are many out there, but just for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to go with, I believe it's SAMHSA's definition of SMI, which is major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. So, major depressive disorder is characterized by persistent low mood, lack of motivation, loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities, and it can also involve suicidal ideation. Bipolar disorder also involves depression, but it alternates with mania or hypomania, which is characterized by increased energy, increased creativity, racing thoughts, impulsive and risky behaviors. It can also involve hallucinations and delusions. Schizophrenia is characterized by hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking, and a flattened affect. And all 3 of these disorders can involve suicidal ideation or non-suicidal self-injury. SMI often overlaps with other disorders such as PTSD, personality disorders, ADHD, addiction, and autism. And according to SAMHSA, in 2022, 15.4 million people in the US lived with some form of SMI. So we did talk a little bit about this. There is a lot of overlap with other disorders. Studies have shown that um, that overlaps with ADHD, autism, PTSD, autoimmune disorders, addiction, etc. So challenges that people with SMI face. The first one I'm going to go over is stigma. These disorders are heavily stigmatized. Have you ever heard someone say something like, "Oh, the weather's so bipolar today," or "She's always angry, she must be bipolar"? How about psycho, crazy, psychotic in response to people who are experiencing extreme emotions? Um, you may have also heard people talk about, well, you should get off those antidepressants because they're not natural. Oh, you're really depressed. Try yoga and smiling. Not that yoga and smiling are bad, but generally not a helpful suggestion for someone deep in the depths of clinical depression. Um, People with SMI are also more likely to become homeless and or addicted to drugs and alcohol, which carry stigma of their own. The symptoms of their illness can be debilitating. They can range from mild depression to complete loss of contact with reality. Um, Psychosis, it can be terrifying, and mania often feels really, really good at first until it kind of spirals out of control. People experiencing a manic episode may engage in like unprotected sex, risky driving, spending more money than they have. Um, Medication trial and error or side effects. Um, a lot of the medications for these illnesses come with some undesirable side effects. They can cause weight gain, low libido. Sometimes a medication will work well until it doesn't. Sometimes they make the symptoms worse. Everyone responds differently to medications, so if one medication works for someone, it might not work for another person, vice versa. And lack of appropriate health care, especially in rural areas. So a lot of people do live in areas where they only have access to a general practitioner and not specialized mental health care services. These practitioners are often minimally or not at all trained on psychiatric medications, mental health diagnoses, or ways to cope with symptoms. The rise of some online psychiatry and therapy services may help reach some of these patients. However, insurance and availability is always a barrier. So let's go in a positive direction. What strengths do people with SMI have? People with SMI, I mean, we're up against a lot, but we have many strengths, including increased creativity. Many people with SMI are creative. They can be talented in music, art, writing, acting, etc. Some famous people with SMI include Carrie Fisher, who of course played Leia in Star Wars, Vincent van Gogh, and Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Resilience. So people with SMI are resilient. It can take a lot out of you, and people who experience SMI symptoms have to learn how to cope. So many people with SMI have overcome trauma, addiction, and homelessness on top of the symptoms of their illness. Battling your own brain isn't easy, but every day we are alive, we win. And last is empathy. People with SMI know what it's like to suffer, isolate, and be afraid. This can make us very empathetic. Many people with SMI, including myself, have gone into helping professions for this reason. We want to make sure no one is left behind or forgotten. Speaking of Lilo and Stitch. So how can people with SMI thrive? Having a good support network of professionals, peers, and friends. Self-care, practicing self-care. So, self-care is not just bubble baths and spa days. This also means consistently getting enough sleep, water, nutritious food, exercise, staying away from drugs and alcohol, and practicing good hygiene. And, I think we can all probably relate to the struggle of, I haven't showered in a week and I don't want to shower now because either I'm depressed or maybe my brain is going in a million different directions, or it's going to be sensory overload and I just can't handle that. So finding ways to be gentle with yourself and take it one step at a time. Do things you enjoy. So this one is super, super important. I cannot stress enough how important this is. Find something that you enjoy and do it, whether it's art, reading, sports, music, or video games. Make sure you set aside time to do it and do it, because it's what's going to keep your spirits up. It's what's going to keep you going. And have a safety plan. And I will talk about that more on the next slide. So what is a safety plan? So a safety plan is a written plan that you can share with your support network to ensure everyone is on the same page if you are experiencing any concerning symptoms. So you'd want to list signs and symptoms, things that are specific to you. What are you like when you're depressed? What are you like when you're manic? What is your psychosis like? Think about not only how you experience those symptoms, but what they might look like to someone else. Supportive people in your life. So listing your support network. One thing that you might want to do is fill out a release of information for any providers to speak to friends or family members or loved ones. This can be life-saving if someone is in a crisis and maybe they've lost touch with reality and they can't communicate with their psychiatrist to get the help they need. Maybe their partner can reach out to their psychiatrist and say, hey, this person's having a really rough time. How can we take care of them together? You want to list medications, not only medications you are on, just so that people know how to treat you, but also medications that don't work for you. Many folks with SMI have a long history of trial and error with medications. And so if there's a medication that you're allergic to or that you had an adverse reaction to, write that down in case you go to the hospital and they want to give it to you again. This lets them know, like, no, this isn't going to work. You also want to write down treatment preferences. Is there a particular clinic or hospital you want to go to in a crisis? Do you want your therapist to be able to release information about you to other caregivers? And then having a crisis plan, what to do if you're truly in crisis. Do you want your partner to call 988 with you? Do you want to go to the hospital? Do you want to take certain rescue medications? And talking about supporting loved ones with SMI, the very first thing is just offering a listening ear. It can be really hard to talk about these symptoms that, other people might not understand. So even if it's not something that you do understand, just being able to listen and hear, what someone is saying can really be life-saving. A lot of people, especially those who are experiencing psychosis, people don't take them seriously. People think that they're crazy or that they might be violent when they're not. And so just hearing them out, listening to what they have to say can really make an impact. Educating yourself on the signs and symptoms of SMI. You are better equipped to help someone experiencing an episode when you know what's going on than when it's just kind of something that you don't understand. Take mental health first aid. This is a great way of educating yourself on SMI and other mental health conditions. I have a link in a later slide on a mental health first aid. There are classes you can take. They're really great. And again, just to become better equipped at handling mental health crisis or emergency situations. And have your own support.
I'm so sorry, Robin, for
Okay.
interrupting you. Sorry, I can't speak. Just one thing that you mentioned, the mental health first aid. The certificate that you get for those classes is only viable for 5 years. I want you to, or 3 to 5 years. So make sure Yeah, so make sure when you get that certification that you have it printed and in hand as soon as possible, because the longer it takes to get it in hand, then by the time you get it, it could be expired. So just be very diligent about that. I didn't ever get my certificate in hand, and it expired before I even graduated college. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Well, thanks
Anyways,
for that insight. Yeah, I did not know that. So thank you. The last thing on the slide is just have your own support. You can't pour from an empty cup. So make sure you have people who you can talk to and you can vent to and who can help lift you up. I This is my last slide. It's just a bunch of resources. I can also send these to Randy so that she can put them on the website, and you have access to all these links. So we have the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, DBSA. Both those sites have a lot of resources for loved ones and friends and family. They also have peer support groups that are free that are really, really good. Mental Health First Aid, as we mentioned, the Hearing Voices Network USA for those who do hear voices or experience psychosis. Dialectical behavioral therapy is a therapy that has really helped a lot of folks with SMI. This is a particular site that has like a free 40-hour course on DBT. It's really good. I also link to the 988 Lifeline, which is the suicide hotline in the US, and the LGBT National Health Center. So, yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being here.
well, thank you so much, Robin. And before you pop down, I actually want to cover a couple things that you said just to give a little more oomph. First of all, the National Alliance on Mental Illness has been doing amazing work lately. If you go to their website and you go look at their transgender I can't remember the word. I can't think of words. But anyways, they are doing a lot of advocacy. That's the word, for transgender people because of what's going on in politics. So make sure that you go to their website and you go check that out. Also, unfortunately, the LGBT National Health Center has been having a lot of crap being thrown at it because of politics and what's going on in the government. Yeah, it was it's not super serious. I'm just when things go negative in the government, suddenly people lose their minds. So there has been a little bit of drama going on, but it's still a great resource. Just be aware that there might be slow to respond right now because of what's going on. The other thing that's really important is that there has been a change in the LGBT Lifeline. Apparently it was shut down because of Trump, but there is a movement to try and create an independent one. So hopefully things happen for that. I'm really excited to hear about how that goes. Finally,
yeah, me too.
Finally, there is going to be a lot of advocacy coming out of our group. This is actually where I'm going to pop Robin down and I'm going to explain what's going on. So before I bring up our last speaker, I have a quick announcement. First of all, we will be officially launching our newsletter soon. We have a paper version that you can actually have us print and send to you. We have a virtual version that I can email to you. You let me know what you want. I have an application that you can fill out and send to me. I will put that in the comments in a little bit. The second thing that I want to announce is that we officially have a store, and I have a little surprise that everyone's first order is automatically set up on the store, that everyone gets 10% off on their first order. So feel free to go pop onto there. We have some really, really cute stuff. We also have a starter bundle if you want to help if you want to help support our team and our group. Our starter bundle includes an official Myths and Mischief t-shirt. Oh, I guess I can take off your banner here, huh? We'll go back to this. It has an official Myths and Mischief t-shirt, some stickers of our amazing mascot, Ravi, and a black hat. I think there's actually, you can pick different, no, you cannot pick different styles. Let me correct myself. A black hat with the logo and name, and then you get a little cool keychain. And this is a $70 package for only $50. And I believe there's free shipping. If not, don't quote me. I apologize. The last thing that I want to tell you about before I run away is so many things going on, is that Basic Studios and Myths and Mischief, my two groups, we would like to start a public podcast where we interview people who are in the creative industry and have created their own niche within the creative industry, because neurodivergent people have this way of making their way no matter what people say. I love that rhymed. So speaking of that, I would like to introduce you to my adopted daughter. And this is funny to me because I didn't adopt her. She adopted me. She has lived quite a life. She's a military child and she's moved around a lot. She's never felt really claimed by anybody. But for the last year, I've been getting to know her. She has an amazing story. It's a little teary-eyed, so please be careful. Mackenzie, let's hear your story. There we go. Okay, hang on. Add you.
There we go. Like Randy said, my story, 22 years of it, has been very long and very hard. I'm still coping with everything. Excuse me. I do want to start off by saying that mental health, especially when you're growing up and trying to learn your body and learn your brain, it can be a lonely battle. People don't know how to help you, or people don't understand what you're going through. It's something we often don't talk about, even when it's eating away at us, because how we fear what we say is going to be misunderstood. I've learned that the path to understanding our minds could be challenging, but when we finally understand it, it could be very rewarding. So, I grew up in a military household, Marine Corps to be exact. What I grew up with was discipline, strength, and resilience, excuse me. I was proud of my parents, don't get me wrong. They went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and they fought for our freedom. But they are a special breed of the military. They endure hardships that many of us can't even imagine. But when you're raised by Marines, there's an expectation to that, and that's you must endure as well. Emotions for me had to be managed, but to be also kept in check. I was never allowed to be vulnerable. Toughness was always a virtue, and I was always taught to put on a brave face. For a long time, I thought that strength meant burying anything that could be considered a weakness. All the thoughts in my head running at a gazillion miles an hour, I had to bury that. Mental health in a military household, not something we really discussed. It was something I had to learn to hide. For years, I didn't have the language to describe what was happening inside me. I remember being overwhelmed by what I know now to be signs of anxiety. Back then, in elementary school, middle school, I just thought I was different, a little too sensitive. I moved around from 3 different states, bouncing between my grandma, my dad, my mom, and then back and forth. I thought everyone felt the way I did. When I looked around, though, no one else seemed to be struggling with what I struggled with. Why couldn't I handle all of my school assignments or all of the other things normal kids do without any stress? It wasn't until I reached about 18 when I realized I wasn't too sensitive. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But that is something I will come back to. But for now, I want to focus on how it looked like through the lens of growing up with military parents. The Marine Corps raised me to believe in things like toughness and control. And no matter what, you marched forward. When I began to experience things like rapid mood swings, going from high energy, hyper focused, and filled with ideas to crashing into depression, not wanting to get out of bed, like Robin said, not wanting to do any self care, I didn't know what was going on. When I reached out for help, my parents, they loved me. They still do, no matter what. They didn't understand. They didn't have the tools or the language to understand mental illness in the way I needed them to. I remember moments when I felt like I was about to lose control, and I still do. The world felt too loud, too fast, and my emotions were either running wild or locked down tight, almost though I was at war with myself. But in my world, in a house shaped by military expectations, talking about emotions, about not being okay, was like admitting defeat. It's like you're waving a white flag, surrendering to everything that is going inside your head or your body. At that time growing up, I didn't know I had autism as well. It was something I couldn't even consider. But looking back, the signs were there. My difficulty with social situations, always standing in the corner with a cup in my hands while everybody else was having a good time. Sensory overload in crowded places. I don't like to go grocery shopping unless it's 6, 7 o'clock in the morning because of how many people are there. The need for routine. For me, it was always get up, get ready for school, go to school, come home, sit at the table, do homework, eat, shower, and go to sleep. And that was my routine. But also the extreme sensitivities to sound and light. It all makes sense now. But back then, I was always told I was just being difficult or too much. It made me feel isolated. But when you grow up with Marines as parents, the message you get is clear. You don't get to be difficult. You adapt. You conform to your surroundings. As I grew older, mental health challenges became harder to ignore. My mood swings, my intense emotions, my struggle with social interactions all built up. But at home, I still felt like I couldn't express anything. I was always, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and doing whatever was asked of me without being able to open up. It was their way of surviving by telling me to toughen up, because that's what they did. But it wasn't mine. When I turned 22, everything came to a point. I reached a point where I could no longer deny that something was going on. I couldn't keep pretending. I had spent most of my childhood years trying to push through everything, trying to make it work, thinking that one day maybe the chaos inside my head would just calm down, but it never did. It was at the age of 22 that I was finally diagnosed with autism, childhood post traumatic stress disorder, and bipolar disorder. Getting that diagnosis was a bittersweet moment because, one hand, there was relief that there was something that I was told to deny growing up. It was there. Nobody just wanted to look at it. But it was also a lot to process. The CPTSD, I later understood, was a result of me growing up in environments filled with unpredictable emotional climates, rigid expectations, and the tensions that came with military life. It didn't help either that my father had a lot of anger issues. And that is where mainly all that traumatic events leading up to the PTSD disorder came from. The environment I was in was emotionally overwhelming in ways that a child shouldn't have to endure. The moves, the long absences, the lack of emotional connection, it all made sense. It made sense on why I felt so alone. Bipolar disorder, too, explains the emotional highs and lows that has always confused me. The manic episodes, the creative bursts, followed by deep crashes into depression. I wasn't too dramatic or too sensitive. My brain chemistry was just wired differently from, say, the another 16-year-old going through the same, school steps, the same homework. And autism, that one kind of shook me, especially with looking back at my social interactions, all the routine disruptions. It helped me see myself in a new light. The world wasn't too loud. It was just my brain processing everything in a way that was different. Now, I do want to be clear, getting diagnosed with all this didn't immediately fix everything. It didn't make the pain go away or erase the years of feeling misunderstood. What it did do was give me a roadmap to understand myself and my brain. It gave me a reason to start seeking help and to finally accept that I didn't have to go through all this alone. I didn't have to keep pretending I was okay. Next steps for me: therapy, medication, and learning about self compassion. Not beating myself down whenever I feel like have a mental breakdown. Taking deep breaths when conversations get hard. It's still a daily journey for me, and it always will. New days bring new experiences, but I have the tools, the knowledge, and the support system that I need to face these challenges. And lastly, I do want to say, if If you're out there feeling lost or like no one understands, please hear me. You're not alone. Mental health struggles can feel isolating, but there are always ways to find help. There are people out there who will listen. Just because your struggles don't look like everyone else's doesn't mean they aren't real. Your experiences matter and your voice matters. If you're struggling, don't wait until it breaks you. There is help out there, and there's always room for healing. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So, thank you for hearing about my story, and don't be afraid to share yours.
Well, thank you so much, Mackenzie. And I really appreciate how raw that was. You know, how real, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who resonate with that and who really do feel like they don't belong in this world. And unfortunately, that's just all too common, and that is why I do this every year. That's why I bring people together, and that's why I make sure that people know they are not alone. They're not going to be fighting alone. Now, that being said, I do have one last announcement to make. At the end of this year, we would like to invite all of you to join us on our Discord and experience the holidays from around the world. We don't want to make a big deal about it, but we do want to introduce different cultures, and we do want to celebrate different traditions. So at the end of December, around Christmas time, we will be hosting a week of heritage experiences, my bad. And we should be starting sorry for looking at the calendar. Around December 14th to the 20th, my apologies. The point of this event is to celebrate every culture, because there's more than just Christmas that happens in winter. There's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa, there's Yule, there's Saturnalia, and we are going to learn about all of them. So the final announcement that I would have to make is also at the end of this year, we will be relaunching our flagship book. It is called Building Courage. It's something that I worked on for a very long time. The Mischief team and I have been working very hard to renovate, redesign, and really just refine the message that we want to give you. So keep an eye out at the end of this year for the new copy of Building Courage, and make sure that you come into our Discord server anytime. But this winter, make sure you show up for our Heritage Festival. Oh, before I go, we are also having a Wizard of Oz event for October. Every Saturday in October, we're going to be playing some Wizard of Oz movies. We're going to play the original with Judy Garland. Gotta do it. The second, Return to Oz. One of the adaptations called Tin Man. It's a 2-episode special. And then we're going to end the month with Wicked, our favorite movie. So make sure that you come hang out with us. Come check out what we got going. And I will see you at the end of the year. Goodbye, my friends.